Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Rite in the Afternoon. Can you believe it's already 2 p.m. already? I got to give a huge shout out to Mike and to Alex for joining me with a class earlier today. It really has been a fantastic hour as far as getting into the weeds of different types of practice, going through the different divisions of let's do this thing and let's do this thing as best we possibly can in order to verify the work we're doing. So I've loaded the videos up on YouTube. This is a sampling of the level 8 material content, right? Going into the different expressions of what are we going to do in order to be able to prove that our work is viable, to be able to demonstrate that what we are doing is the path that we're supposed to be on, right? And the path changes as people go through their different practices. The path really does become something that is exciting or different. And there are levels to that difference. There are levels of engagement through that difference. And just knowing about it isn't enough for some people. Some people have to be part of the action, right? And so as you become part of the action, you become part of the hierarchy, right? Because by you, in your initiation processes, are introduced to the gods by the people that can do that sort of thing. This is why you have an elder or you have someone who is familiar with that particular deity that can say, by this deity, I give you this, that you shall be named for this purpose, right? And so that they, by that purpose, then become initiated into the traditions and into the mysteries so that those experiences and those expressions that they have are accurate, that they are part of the collective. They're part of the collective wisdom, part of the collective experience, part of the collective expression. So as you're going through these kinds of situations and these scenarios in your own day-to-day life, you have to then incorporate how are you most like those things which you're serving, right? And this becomes a point of contention between, me and why I don't like modern paganism. Why don't I like modern paganism? It's very simple, because I don't believe that the people that are saying that they serve a god or saying that they understand what they're trying to replicate is possible to do. You see, in the ATRs and in priestcraft, you have bishops, you have elders, you have godparents and god siblings and the children of those that come forth, and everybody is determined by divination in the ATR. And in the priesthood, it's the same way, or at least it's lineage based. So you do certain amounts of things, you petition, you get a certain level of experience, you get a certain level of education, and it qualifies you to move up to the next rank, right? Similar to military progression, right? You do enough things, you serve, you survive long enough, and you ascend in rank. Depends on how many people you help. There's all sorts of set qualifications. And this is the thing where a lot of, I think, modern paganism doesn't do enough research into the ancient traditions. And what do I mean by this? I mean that, like my friend at the time who served Aphrodite as a devotee, right? He was not an initiate into the mysteries. He was not a priest, right? He's not what you would consider to be anything beyond his year and a day, right? But he'd been serving this particular deity for a decade, right? And so by serving the deity for a decade, that is different than having the rights to be able to call it down as a priest, an extension of it, or a child of it. That is a separate class. That is a separate. Just because you're a witch and you practice magic and you can contact the spirits of the dead, or you can work with the spirits or the demons or the angels or whatever, that's your level 1 stuff, right? That's you work with these things. They may or may not know you. You're just able to do these kinds of things. You have no authority. Your level 2 stuff. Level 2 stuff is you've been introduced to a particular deity. You've been engaging with a particular form of energy. And as a result, you have familiarity with it. It has familiarity with you. Why? Because you're a child of its service. You are calling on it daily. You are incorporating it in your life in such a way that it becomes an extension of your own being, right? That's your level 2. That's your priestcraft, right? The priests of Aphrodite, snip, snip, they lost their nuts, right? The priests of Osiris, same thing. Like, there is body modification that is undergone in shamanic rites. There is death that occurs in shamanic rites. There is rebirth that occurs in shamanic rites and initiations. So those things which you assume by blood, this is what we're talking about, ancient stuff. We're not talking about modern sensibilities with their, everything becomes squidgy. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about what was the real path that people gave their lives to do and serve, right? It wasn't which god is the flavor of the week. What spirit goes on your altar that has no business being there in conjunction with something else? That's not what we're talking about, folks. What we're talking about is very simply the implementation of these kinds of things where you have your spirit, you have your patron force, right? And you become an extension of that patron force. You channel it down, you send things up to it, right? And by being able to do that in the same kind of way an apostolic tradition is in the Catholic Church, where they are hands-on from bishop to bishop to bishop, carrying on the lineage of Christ, the power bestowed upon the apostles and such, right? And you also have the blood cults that associate specific spirits with specific lineages and so on, the behaviors and everything like that. So you have the union of those two things that Wicca and modern paganism doesn't even know about, because it's all a bunch of level 1 people talking about level 1 things, and they're not interacting with people within the clergy of those traditions. Secret sects, secret societies, things like that carry the level 3 conversation. Okay? This is where your high priest comes in. Your high priest forgoes service to become an extension. Okay, so let me put this very, very clearly. The high priests of the ancient world served the gods directly because they were an extension of the god. They quite literally brought that god down into their soul, into their body, into their everything about them was the extension of that deity, so that no matter what happened, no matter what they did, when they acted, it was as if the deity was acting. It's like the Pope, right? This is the kind of magic that the high priests are responsible for. So it's not everybody's going to be the Pope of their own coven, right? You have someone who fills in for the high priest. You have someone who can act as a priest, but they don't have the role or the responsibility or the attunement to that divine force. And now this is where I do like Wicca. This is where I do like the idea that people have the authority and the autonomy to be able to do this kind of union themselves. However, there is specific ritual. There is specific rites of power that come out of the ancient world. You can look in the Alexander's Notebooks, which is the Gardnerian extension, which was stolen from Gardner, in the same kind of way that Gardner got it from all the people he got it from, right? And so you have modern Wicca, which is witchcraft from the traditional British Isles, and you have the cobbled together applications of what people were doing and what they would talk to each other about, right? And so I'm not trying to say that your belief in a god or goddess is not valid. What I'm saying is that your understanding of the levels of priesthood and the responsibilities of the priesthood are fucking different, right? You assume the role of a priest because you assume the role in service to a god or a goddess or a divine force, right? Emphasis on divine force. You could be a priest of the devil too. You could do that. That is totally a thing because it is a divine force. It is an angel. It is a thing made by God, right? So now that we're having this conversation, there is a secondary difference from what is the associations between the God and man. Level 1 folks work with in tandem for they know the right kind of thing that will get those gods to pay attention. It's witchcraft. That's the science and study of magic. Those that are level 2 right? Those that become the priests of those things serve that one specific force. They serve that one specific energy, and they figure out how to incorporate that specific energy in their lives, right? Level 3, that energy becomes their life. They are that thing. There is no separation from it and them. They are the power that they are talking about. Right and full, rightful and proper. They become the high priest. And it's not about the ego. It is not about anything to do with the individual. It is about the power of the God that they serve. They become interwoven with it so inexorably that these things are a given. These things are this is what they're doing. This is how they're doing it. This is why they're doing it. These are the traditions that they follow. And these are the lineages that they carry. If you don't have that, you're never going to be a high priest. You're not. That's bullshit. I don't care how many times you call down a god or goddess. If you're doing it in the wrong way, and by the wrong way, I mean you're not making offerings to it as according to the ancients. You're not ascribing to it the behaviors that the ancients ascribed to it. You're pussifying you're weakening the effect of that understanding. So that is very much an unpopular opinion. You are making it weak. You are weakening your own connection to the divine because you are afraid of your modern sensibilities. It's like you don't summon up something that's a blood god with flowers and fruit and vegetables. You summon something that's a blood god with blood. That's why I don't worship blood gods. I just don't like it. I think it's gross. I don't. I like fruits. I like veggies. I like things that grow on trees. I like things that are self-renewing, right? That's my path. I like that. I like it a lot, right? But it doesn't require blood. At least not my stuff, right? Does it require the understanding that the spirit and the body of the thing are separate entities and that they can and do work separately so that the spirit of a plant can work separately from the body of the plant and then both in conjunction together should be made as a magical vessel through which spirits can be conjured? Absolutely. Why? Because I understand these things are inexorable, right? Like then it's like if you were trying to use a plant in your magic, right? Say we'll pick on valerian root or a rose, right? You've got that ingredient and you're going to grind it down, right? Does that make you a priest of the rose bush? No. If your entire life was centered around rose cultivation, that would make you a priest of the rose bush. If you were a geneticist making new kinds of roses, that would make you a high priest of the rosebush spirit because you're creating new forces that can interact accordingly. So you're building a tradition. You're building a thing. If you want to walk the path of the priesthood, you've got to figure out a way to make it all-encompassing in your life in a way that elevates those around you, illuminates your own path forward. So if you do become an extension of that God force, goddess force, whatever, you have the authority built upon your practice tangibly in the environment where it matters. Some people know you, some people don't know you. That's fine. But you need to have a big repertoire if you're going to go anywhere near trying to be a high priest. If you're going to talk about archmastery versus mastery, right? Mastery is you can do your thing, you can teach your thing, right? Archmastery is you can do your thing, teach your thing, and apply your thing in different ways, in different traditions. You can bridge the gaps between one world and another, right? I can bridge the gap in mentorship between paganism and business. I absolutely can. I did. Help people convert their businesses back when COVID was, a thing, You've got a job that's suffering and you need to figure out how to do social community engagement. And you have a thing you need to teach via oral tradition. Absolutely. That is totally my jam, right? In that way, we can change the world. And this is the path of the wizard. This is the path of the magician. This is the path of the occultist. Is our responsibility is not to assume the role of priest specifically. Our role is to be able to apply the wisdom to be able to apply what we can do, what we can teach, what we can learn. From that, we then bridge into different areas. Are we working in medicine? Are we working in counseling? Are we working in social and economic development? Are we working in business cultivation? Are we working in professional development? What are we doing? How are we doing it? Why are we doing it? These are the things. These are the cultivations between what is not, what will be, what has yet to be. Right? And so as you go through and as you cultivate these power, right? Real power is the influence of others and people listening. But not to you, to themselves. Using what you've said to inspire them in a way that causes change in accordance with their environment. Right? So this is why you can teach business techniques. You can use sorcery to teach business techniques because it's changing the fate of others, changing the fate of those who participate. And so when you are a layperson, right, you're working with the prayers of God, you're working with the saints as a layperson, you're working with the angels as a layperson, you don't have any holy orders to call upon the angels as an extension of the Christ or whatever priest you are. That's separate from what is understood to be your path. You have to be able to survive your path. You have to be able to condition yourself so that way, no matter what situation you find yourself in, you survive. Level 1 stuff, you learn it. Great. You learn what these things are. Level 2, you apply. Level 3, you teach. And you do that for your devotee status. You do that for your priesthood. You do that for your high priesthood. All right, so it's a 9-year process. And so this is why you go through and you teach the stuff that you teach over and over and over again. The same conversations you have them in speech, have them in video, have them in text, have them in books, have them in person, have them online. But have them. So that way you understand that the difference between when you say you're going to do an initiation right into something, when you go through the level of development for it, level 1, you're learning how to serve. How does it need to be served? Level 2, how do you serve with that? Level 3, how do you become that? And that's the thing that I find that modern Wicca, modern paganism lacks, especially in a coven structure, is because level 1, yeah, it's all about showing that you have a year and a day's worth of dedication. Level 2, showing that you can use the stuff that you dedicated yourself to in practical application in your life and to serve the lives of others. Level 3, you become an extension of the very thing that you're doing. You should take about 20 years before you become a high priest in something. You really should. You should take about 7 years as a level 2. And you should take the majority of your time in level 1 because it frees you up to study whatever you need. So yeah, you might only have a year and a day in 1, right? But 7 years to study something isn't that long. Just to do and develop something, not that long. 10 years, 20 years, that's when you're getting into practice. And if you're doing it wrong, then it doesn't work. But if you do it right, you can compress time. You can solve problems. You can sort solutions. And so this is the conversation that I want to have with you is as you go through and you think about it, you consider what is your path? What is it that you're going to build? What is your level 1? What is your level 2? What does your level 3 look like, right? Your level 1 is you've already learned the basics, all the correspondence that you need. So that all of the things that I say when it comes to magic, anyway, if you're working with my system, you understand that there is a course, an order, a recipe that you need to follow, right? Level 1 means now you can write your own stuff, right? And it'll work. It'll manifest most of the time, if not all of the time, right? Level 2, you are so good at making your stuff manifest with the level 1 content that you can go in and just gently do level 2. You can approach it with elegance. You can approach it with panache and style and flair and do all of the developmental stuff along the way. Level 3, you are so good at it. You are just the living personification of what it means to be that for your path. You know, you can answer the questions, you can serve the people, you can make the stuff manifest, you can teach the ritual process, you create new ritual processes, and you contribute back to the community. That's the path. So the deeper you get with that, the easier this stuff becomes. So with that, my friends, I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to look forward to seeing you in the comments to see what you think about this, or to see where you fit in your path as you're building it out for your community, for your traditions, right? Because this is about you incorporating this kind of idea to organize your thoughts so that way you serve better, you serve deeper, you serve more true. Level 1 stuff or level 0 stuff, like you're just outside the gates. You're cursory exploration into it. You're like barely even, you're not even at the surface level yet. Like you're at the beach walking to the shoreline, right? Level 2, or rather level 1, you're like in the tide, you're in the tidal current. You're going back and forth between what thing you want to learn, how you're learning it. You're going to get a little bit more information, etc. Right? Level 2, you're out at sea. You're on the surface of the sea, right? Level 3, you're at the bottom of the goddamn ocean, swimming around with the big fishes in the deep black abyss, and it don't fucking matter, right? Like they're your friends, right? Because you're just as big and scary as they are, right? But then when you go out and try to talk to people on the shoreline, it's different. You know, you got to readapt your words. You got to readapt the analogies. You got to make it simple. You got to make it easy for people to understand how deep it goes while not being scary about it, right? Because it's not about being edgy. It's not about being, oh, I'm the biggest badass in the block. No. It's about making sure that the things that you do make it so that you become an extension of that thing you serve. So that way, by your service of it, you become a pure flow for it, so that you embody the traditional application of it, right? So when you do the rites of naming, when you do the rites of becoming, when you do things that will allow and anchor the divine forces into your consciousness, so that way you are the living extension of those consciousnesses. You don't even have to say what consciousness you're the living embodiment of. You just do your shit and it gets done and it works the same way, right? There's the external forces and there's the internal forces. You become the internal force, so that as you deal with the external force, it all works in harmony. It works in tandem. So that's what I want to leave you with today as you build out your practices, as you build out your own academies, as you build out your own application of these things. Because at the end of the day, I want everybody that goes through this project to be able to teach their own stuff, to be able to teach their stuff in their way, but with the precision to verify, with the precision to perform, so that even if they look like they're kind of doofy or whatever, like, I mean, I'm not the most well put together guy. You know, it's like my desk still has the spell of the day material on it. This is all the material from the stuff that I was going over with the class that just ended about a half an hour ago, you know? So like, it's all an incorporation. We're all balancing the different levels of what we do. And the more that we can get good at dealing with these things, the more that we can interact with these kinds of things, the easier it is between us and the relationships that we form. Because it's like, yeah, you can trust the information that I'm going to tell you. You can trust the thing that what I'm saying, it's coming from a place of history. It's not coming from a place of trying to be a dick about it. Right? And that's the biggest point I can make is don't be a dick with your stuff, right? Don't try to be a dick to the gods either. Don't try to say, oh, I'm going to call down this god over here and then call down its enemy god over here, and then try to get those two things to be like meshing, because that shit don't work, right? And so you can't do that when you're working with the gods. So like I said, there's a level to it. What's your level? You know, level 0, You're just there kind of learning witchcraft. Like, it don't matter. It's okay. Like, you don't have to serve nothing. You don't got to light no candles. You don't got to do you don't got to do your shit for that entity, right? Level 0. That's what that is. Level 1. Level 1, you are familiar with it. You serve that idea. You're learning to serve it better, right? And if becoming a priest of that thing is in your to-do list, then you learn how it needs to be served. And so by the time you're at level 2, you're serving the people with that, right? But you're not that thing. You are just working with that thing or working for that thing as a servant leader of it, right? But it's by the time you become a high priest, if you ever try to run your own household, your own coven, your own whatever it is, you got to be so fucking good as the embodiment of that thing that you're channeling, that force of nature that you're working with. So that way, if you say you are the embodiment of this force in your spell, that's what you become. And reading the Saunders notebooks is that stuff is in there. But the way that it's been watered down, the way that it's been made accessible to everybody, does everybody a disservice. Because they don't understand what it's actually talking about, because they don't fucking take the time to go and read a goddamn book. Yes, I'm pissed off at that. So anyway, I'm going to enjoy this cup of tea, my friends. I recommend you make a cup of tea. Like, still had to finish off the pot that I made this morning before the delivery came. But I've got the flowering jasmine. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to try this. This could be super yummy. So anyway, stay safe. Don't be evil. Don't be a dick. Try not to serve evil gods, because that shit ain't no fun. Don't be evil, right? Don't do it. Anyway, stay safe, and I will see you tomorrow morning for the spell of the day. And for those that are in the 6 p.m. class, I will see you then. All righty, my friends. Bye for now.